The origin story of the Hmong people has been passed down through generations by word of mouth. For over 1,000 years. It's a story of hardship and survival that tells of a hero named Keeb, who led his people to safety after they were relentlessly pursued by an evil warlord named Chang. But who are the Hmong people? Where did they come from? And how did they make it to Southeast Asia? And who was that evil warlord Chang? And what did he want with the Hmong? The answers to these questions take us back to 1,000 years ago in a place called Hmong Village. Hmong Village is located high up in the mountains of a region in southwestern China. For centuries, this area has been home to the Hmong people. But before we jump into the story of their origin, let me tell you about a group of people called the Tai Kadai, around 2,000 years ago. This linguistic group consisted of many different tribes that spoke similar languages and shared common cultural traits. Over time, these tribes spread out across Southeast Asia. Some became known as the Tai, others as the Shan, and still others as the Hmong. But despite their different names, they all share a common ancestor, which means they're all related. In fact, the Hmong are most closely related to another group called the Yao. They share many similarities, including their language, customs, and traditions, as well as physical characteristics such as dark skin, a short stature, and long black hair. In fact, the two groups are so similar that until recently they were considered one and the same. However, there are some differences between them, such as their clothing and the way they perform certain rituals. These differences led to the Hmong and the Yao to be classified as separate ethnic groups. Now let's meet the main characters of our story. On one side we have the hero, Keeb. He was born into the Hmong tribe in the mountainous village of Hmong Village. Life was hard for the Hmong. They were constantly at war with the neighboring tribes and had to rely on their skill in hunting and gathering to survive. But Keeb was not like the other Hmong. He was brave, intelligent, and charismatic. These qualities made him a natural leader, and the Hmong soon rallied behind him. Under Keeb's leadership, the Hmong became a powerful force to be reckoned with. They were able to defend themselves against outside threats and even expand their territory. But Keeb's rise to power did not go unnoticed. There was someone else who wanted to be the most powerful person in the region. The villain of our story, Chang. Chang was the ruler of a neighboring kingdom, and he had been eyeing the Hmong's territory for some time. He wanted the Hmong's land, and he wanted their wealth. So he began to make plans to conquer the Hmong. However, Chang was a smart man, and he knew that he couldn't just attack the Hmong head-on. They were too strong and too well defended, so he decided to use a more underhanded tactic. He sent a message to the Hmong, pretending to be an ally, and invited their leaders to a peace summit. However, the summit was really a trap. As soon as the Hmong leaders arrived, Chang had them arrested. He then declared war on the Hmong and began to march his army towards Hmong Village. The Hmong were unprepared for the attack, and their defenses were quickly overwhelmed. As Chang's army approached, the Hmong knew that they were in trouble. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Their only hope was to flee into the mountains. This was not an easy task. The mountains were treacherous and dangerous, and there was no guarantee that they would be safe there. But the Hmong had no other choice. They had to try to escape. As the Hmong fled, Chang's army gave chase. They were determined to wipe out the Hmong once and for all. The Hmong were able to evade their pursuers for some time, but eventually they were cornered. They had nowhere left to run. The Hmong were terrified. They knew that they were about to be killed, but they refused to give up. They fought back against Chang's army, but it was hopeless. They were simply too weak. One by one, the Hmong warriors were killed, until finally it was just Keeb who left alive. But Keeb was not ready to give up. He continued to fight, fueled by his determination to protect his people and his homeland. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, something amazing happened. The Hmong villagers who had fled into the mountains returned with reinforcements. They had brought with them warriors from neighboring tribes who had heard about the Hmong's plight. These reinforcements gave Keeb and the remaining Hmong warriors a much-needed break. They were able to regroup and come up with a new plan. This time, instead of running away, they would stand and fight. The Hmong and their allies fought bravely, but it was clear that they were still outmatched. They needed something to help them turn the tide of battle. And then Keeb remembered an old legend he had heard as a child. There was a hidden valley in the mountains where magical herbs grew. These herbs were said to have incredible healing powers and could even bring the dead back to life. He could find these herbs, maybe he could save his people. So Chi Yu left the battle and set off into the mountains to find the magical herbs. His journey was long and dangerous, but he was determined to succeed. Finally, he found the hidden valley and began to gather the herbs. As he was gathering the herbs, he was attacked by Chang's men. They had followed him and were determined to kill him. But Chi Yu was prepared. He used the herbs to heal himself and his allies, and together they defeated Chang's men. With his newfound power, Chi Yu returned to the battlefield. He used the herbs to heal the wounded and revive the dead. The Hmong and their allies were overjoyed and knew that they had a chance to win the battle now. With Chi Yu's help, the Hmong and their allies fought back against Chang's army. This time they were stronger and more determined than ever before. The battle was fierce, but eventually the Hmong and their allies came out on top. Chang's army was defeated and he himself was killed. The Hmong were victorious, but they knew that they could not stay in the region. They had to move somewhere else. And so they packed up their belongings and set off into the unknown. They traveled for many years, and during that time, they split up into different groups. Some groups settled in what is now Laos, while others moved further south into Thailand and Vietnam. Still others continued to move south and eventually settled in the mountainous regions of northern Vietnam and southern China. Today, the Hmong people can be found all over Southeast Asia. They are known for their colorful clothing, their unique customs and traditions, and their strong sense of community. But their story almost ended before it even began. If not for Chi Yu's bravery and determination, the Hmong people may have been wiped out by Chang's army. So remember the name Chi Yu, the Hmong hero who saved his people from the evil warlord Chang? But wait, there's more to the story. After defeating Chang, Chi Yu and the Hmong people faced a new challenge. They had to find a new home. The region they had lived in for generations was no longer safe. They needed to find a place where they could live in peace and raise their families without fear of attack. So Chi Yu gathered his followers and set out to find a new homeland. They traveled for many years, and during that time, the group split up into different tribes. Each tribe had its own leader, and each leader had a vision for where their people should settle. Some wanted to stay in the mountains, while others wanted to move to the lowlands. Some wanted to live in small villages, while others wanted to build large cities. Despite their differences, the Hmong people were able to find common ground and establish several settlements across Southeast Asia. But as the years went on, the different Hmong tribes began to forget their shared history. They no longer remembered the bravery of Chi Yu or the evil warlord Chang. They had developed their own languages, customs, and traditions, and they had become isolated from each other. However, every year, during the Hmong New Year celebrations, the different Hmong tribes would come together and reminisce about their shared past. They would tell stories of Chi Yu's bravery and the evil warlord Chang, and they would remind themselves of the importance of their cultural heritage. Today, the Hmong people continue to live in the mountains of Southeast Asia. They are known for their colorful clothing, their unique customs and traditions, and their strong sense of community. But despite their differences, the Hmong people are united by their shared history. They are the descendants of Chi Yu, the hero who saved his people from the evil warlord Chang, and they will never forget the lessons he taught them. If you enjoyed this video and would like to learn more about the history and culture of the Hmong people, I highly recommend checking out this video next. Till next time, stay curious and keep learning.